All right, welcome everybody. We'll call to order the Grand Forks City Council meeting for Tuesday, February 18th. If we get a roll call, please, Maureen.
Weigel.
Here.
Osowski. Here. Berg. Here. Lenski. Here. Friedolfs.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
And Veen.
Here.
All present. We have a quorum.
Excellent, thank you. Item 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 1.3, Mayor's announcements. The first one is just be aware Keystone Utility Services has been hired by the city to replace all the outdated residential water meters. So if you've received a letter from Keystone asking you to make an appointment, please do so. There's no cost, takes about 30 minutes. We've got some phone numbers. Office number is, or the phone number 877-587-2279. And then you can also go online to get that scheduled as well at www.keystoneutilities.com/schedule. And more on the water topic, we do have our partners from Devil's Lake. Just keep them in mind. They had a real bad water break. If anyone saw the video, it's pretty horrible. Drained one of their water towers as well and left a few feet of water out in a busy intersection. As you can imagine, with minus 20 degrees weather, pretty tough. So keep them in your thoughts, your prayers, to get that work through that. We did have a couple of retirements I just want to highlight. Congratulations and best wishes to Corporal Troy Vanyo. He retired from the Grand Forks Police Department after 31 years. And then not to be outdone, Deputy Chief Chad Cutshaw retired from the fire department after a great career in 35 years. So both those gentlemen will be missed, and just want to thank them for their service and wish them the best of luck in their retirement. That's all I've got for mayor's announcements. So move on to 2, awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations.
2.1 is a legislative update.
All right, Mr. Bernstrom, you coming out for that? There he goes. Surprise.
Evidently, cold weather isn't great for electronics either. So. and to tape some things together back there. So this week on the legislative update, we'll talk a little bit about those bills that we talked about last week and just where they've progressed and where we're at. The property tax bill, House Bill 1176, is still in appropriations. They met as recently as yesterday. Still no vote out of appropriations on that. The guts of the bill is pretty much the same. They're making amendments on various details throughout, but it's a primary residence tax credit. It's a 3% cap. Those things are still in place. House Bill 1332 is the ag processing facility incentive fund through the Department of Ag. Mr. Phelan, you mentioned that is looking like it's going to be in appropriations later this week. So we're waiting on that once that comes out of appropriations. Everyone we've talked to is supportive of the bill. And the concept of the bill, I think it's just a matter of where that $30 million comes from, whether it's bonded or it comes out of a fund that's existing. I think that's just the details of that is up for debate. 1537 is the water agreements bill. Pretty much a bill trying to make water agreements that have been in place for 20 plus years to continue to be, in place. There's been some amendments to that bill, and with that, I'll turn to Mr. Gostet.
Yeah, there were a series of amendments, but the last one that got through the political subdivision committee for the House resulted in it leaving the statute the way it was, with the exception of adding a new subsection that would provide that agreements made prior to January 1 of 2025 would be voidable only by the Public Finance Authority and providing 30 days notice. But then it went on to say this particular section would have no impact on litigation commenced prior to January 1 of 2025, which would then exclude the City of Grand Forks situation because litigation was started before January 1 of 2025. That passed with an 8-1 vote for that we're not there. And then it got a due pass approval by that committee with the same vote total. Again, when I was there, and speaking to the representatives in that committee, there was a lot of disbelief that a technicality that exists with the city of Grand Forks and the East Central matter would spawn litigation between two political subdivisions. And a lot of people that I spoke to didn't seem to think that it made a lot of sense that this could happen. Nonetheless, I mean, obviously, right now, the way the bill sits, it doesn't necessarily help the city of Grand Forks' situation with that matter with East Central, but it still is open. If it passes the House, there's still opportunity to speak to the Senate and see if there's some further amendments that could be made to it. So that's where it lies at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Gostet. The Public Transit Funding Bill 2254, that is still in Senate appropriations. That bill currently sits with a $5 million grant to fixed route public transit systems, and then a study for the long-term plan for how the state should be funding their portion of public transit. That is still sitting in Senate appropriations. Senate Bill 2376 was our casino bill, with the letter of intent this board signed with the Turtle Mountain. That failed in the Senate on Friday afternoon with a 15 to 29 vote. So that bill is dead. We talked to Senator Meyer over the weekend. He wasn't very confident that there'd be some form of resurrection of that bill. So that bill is dead. And then finally, Senate Bill 2398. That's that encroachment bill that you guys voted that we write some testimony with questions and in opposition to portions of that bill. That bill was heavily amended. What is out of the bill? The 25-mile radius is out of the bill. That was the big hang-up. What is in its place is a study in the interim based on the missions that are at the base to determine what that military impact zone is. So that's in the bill. Also, there made large amendments to what that military impact commission looks like. Remember, we had a lot of questions on that. Was it going to be a board of 50 people? We weren't sure. That is down to townships have one representative, counties have one representative, and any cities within that impact zone have a representative, and then the state has a representative as well. The base has the ability to opt in or not. So taking that whole 25 miles out of that bill, both for the city of Minot, for the city of Grand Forks, relieved a lot of answered questions that we had. We'll put it that way. And I do know that Council President Sandy has something to add on this bill.
Mayor, thank you. I really appreciate the Senator Barta and his thoughtfulness, trying to make sure that our community and the base surrounding communities are looking out for the best interest of the Grand Forks Air Force Base. I think it's really important for all of us. We have a lot of, it's high stakes what's going on at Grand Forks Air Force Base, both at Grand Sky and with the base personnel and the future missions. And I think it's very important that we look to make sure that we're including the Air Force in our decision-making process. I just didn't particularly like the fact that the city of Grand Forks and our planning was potentially we were potentially having to ask for permission to allow certain developments to happen within our community, and those decisions being made by people that aren't necessarily part of our community. So I appreciated that the city council moved to have some testimony created for that. I think that bill is in search of a solution where there isn't necessarily a problem today. And so I'd love for us to actually get ahead of this. And I think doing that, what's better than creating some commission, in my opinion, is actually adding people from the Air Force Base on our planning and zoning commission. That way, they're part of the process. They're hearing what's going on in our community. They're hearing what potential future developments are going to be, what areas of town we're looking to develop. And so I would like to see us add an ex officio, whether it's the wing commander or his designee or the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. I don't particularly care who it is, but I think adding someone from the Air Force to our Planning and Zoning Commission so that they're involved and are able to hear and provide narrative to us as we grow is important. So I'm hoping that we could add that to next week's Committee of the Whole meeting for further discussion. Mayor, thank you.
Yeah, I think that would be just fine. So I think Mr. Gosta can look up if you need any ordinance changes as related to that, but if it's ex officio, I'd imagine it'd be policy, so. All right, thank you.
With that, I'm open to any questions, if there are any.
Any questions for Mr. Burnstrom?
Mr. Burnstrom, what's it going to take to turn the volume on our television station or the feed?
Part of the issue I'm kicking around back there.
Okay, thank you.
There's probably tens of people that are unable to hear this right now.
Again, cold weather is not good for anything.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Burnstrom.
Thank you.
2.2 is the former Grand Forks Water Treatment Plant Site redevelopment update.
Mr. Phelan. Just a video tonight, or you got a verbal update?
I'm going to
as
give
well?
you the development strategies. As you recall, they're working on the water treatment plant redevelopment. They're winding things down. You have an advisory group that's been appointed to provide direction, one of whom is Councilmember Berg and also Councilmember Vian are on that group. I think they're set for a couple more meetings in March and then to have a final proposal back to the City Council in April. And then from there, presumably, as we kind of finalize the concept, it would end up in a request for proposals, and we'll get some feedback on that. And then ultimately, we want to start demolishing that project, the water treatment plant, after all these years. So with that, I just wanted to give you an update on that. The group that's working on this on your behalf, the steering group, they want to, the theme is to go big. Not oftentimes people want to go small, but they want to go big, and they want to be bold, and they want to try to look for something that is everlasting for the next 100 years, similar to what that water treatment plant has delivered to the city of Grand Forks over the years. And, if you think about it, it took about 25, 30 years to transition the existing water treatment plant system to out west. And so that's kind of the theme. And so they're looking at a smaller commercial as part of that development, just because, there are some challenges with commercial. Residential units, they're looking at 600 plus residential units with a public amenity that would somehow integrate into the greenway. So there's some exciting things with that. And when you talk about 600 units, if you look across the street at Franklin on 4th, that's 200 plus units. So you can see that site probably would deliver 3 times as many housing units on that site. Versus, what we would call a large project in the downtown Grand Forks. So with that, they want to, during February, our community development department's been working with development strategies. They want to get more public input. And so I'm going to show you a video. There's an interactive website you can go to provide your opinions throughout February. And then when March and April occurs, it'll just help with further decision making. So with that, Mayor Buchanski, I'm going to hit the video.
Development dynamics, talking with local stakeholders and the community, and working towards site concepts and a district strategy to set the stage for demolition and redevelopment. For the WTP site itself, we have been exploring development scenarios rooted in market opportunity and steering committee feedback that are designed to be economically feasible, beautifully designed, and amenity-rich. But because a single site can address only a limited amount of community goals, we are also looking beyond the water treatment plant and crafting a vision for the district. Our aim is to integrate both the site and the surrounding area with the momentum and energy of downtown Grand Forks. In fall 2024, the Grand Forks community shared insights about the WTP site and downtown South District at a public open house and in a survey. Some themes emerged. People would like to see support for the hub of social service providers currently in the area, opportunities for housing and mixed-use, mixed-income spaces, better connectivity and experience for pedestrians and bikers, including improved access to the Greenway, riverfront, and parks, and a stronger sense of place and celebration of the area's historic character. As we move toward a district strategy for Downtown South, we are aiming to improve connections with downtown, the Greenway, and the riverfront. This will mean exploring opportunities through 3 lenses: connectivity and mobility, including improving the pedestrian experience, calming traffic, and enhancing traffic stops; placemaking, including streetscape improvements, public art, and local programming; and development opportunities, including adding mixed-income housing, consolidating social services, and enhancing the area's historic character. We want to hear from you about Downtown South. What would make this area a better place to live, work, and play? We are using 3 maps to explore the district's future through the lenses of connectivity and mobility, placemaking, and development opportunities. Drop some pins on these maps to tell us where you'd like to see specific types of improvements across the district. You can take a closer look at this how-to image on grandforkswtp.com. When you're done, remember to bookmark grandforkswtp.com to keep tabs on the project's progress and future opportunities to join the conversation.
So Mayor and City Council, John will, in public information, they'll send out this so the public is aware of it. But essentially what you do is these 3 little rectangles here, you click on those and then you can provide feedback on the various component parts as you work through those 3 areas. So we'll try to get the word out in the next few weeks so we get public input. There will be a couple steering group meetings, and then in April you'll see some of the final product for you to engage with on that. So with that, Mayor, I'll hand it back to you.
All right, do you want to answer any questions at this point, or just kind of an update today?
Just an update today.
Sounds good. Well, I thank Ms. Lunsky and Mr. Veen for their work on this committee. Really very exciting. Oh, Ms. Berg, you're not on this one, Ms. Lunsky? Oh, it's Ms. Berg. Well, that time I didn't screw up. I actually had the wrong person. So thank you, Ms. Berg and Mr. Veen, for your work on that. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to 3 public hearings and second reading of ordinances. There are none tonight, so we'll move on to item 4, citizen comments as they relate to action items. Are there any comments, Ms. Lundmark? There are not. All right, city staff did not have any items that we were going to pull, so is there any items that council wanted pulled under item 5 action items for further discussion?
5.1.
5.1. Any others? All right, I'm going to list them off and I'll look for a motion. Items 5.1, 5.2, 5.3. Did I say 5.1? All right, let me start over. I'll look for a motion on items 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, 5.10, 5.11, 5.12, 5.13, 5.14, 5.15, 5.16, 5.17, 5.18, 5.19, 5.20, and 5.21. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion from Ms. Berg, second from Mr. Friedolfs. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. So we'll be on to item 5.1.
which is Special Event Program Annual Report.
All right. Did you have any particular
I
questions?
just want to make a quick motion about it. I'll motion to approve and to continue to allow, or continue to have Visit Grand Forks manage the event funding program, but I would like to motion that we start focusing on night stays to help with our hotel motel tax.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5.1 and continue with the Greater Grand Forks. Do I have that name right, Mr. Rigg? Visit Greater Grand Forks, excuse me, now I've nailed it. And to focus on hotel night stays. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Got a second from President Sandy. Any further discussion on that motion? Do you have a
Maybe
comment,
if I
please,
could,
Mr. Conlon?
Just context for you to consider as part of that. Visit Greater Grand Forks, as I understand, and Julie or Ms. Rigg can provide more context here as she sees fit. But I will just mention that part of the feedback that staff has gotten over the years as part of their administration of this project, and kind of as we iterate year to year on improving it. Some of the feedback that we had gotten in past years from event organizers was actually to shift some of these city funds, this portion of funding towards events that were not as focused on heads and beds, I believe is the industry term. Some of their thoughts were, the CV or the Visit Greater Grand Forks, formerly the CVB, has other funding sources and their programs that do support that. So there were some local events organizers that had at least expressed that feedback to us that, some of the, at least preserving some portion of those funds for more local funds, less heads and beds focused, was some of that feedback we'd received over the years. So again, just context for you to consider as part of the discussion.
I have a
Thank
question.
you, Mr. Collins. Yeah, Ms. Osowski, please.
Just to make it clear, these funds are pulled out of our Economic Development Fund, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further discussion points or?
Mayor, I've got a question,
Yep, Mr. Weigel, please.
and maybe it's just clarification for Ms. Osowski. Ms. Osowski, you're not mandating the heads and beds approach. You're just saying you'd like to see more focus on it, correct?
I would ultimately like them to follow the rules of the other funding programs that they manage, and I would like to focus on, I guess, heads and beds is what we're calling it now. I mean, ultimately, our goal should be to improve our hotel motel tax so we can continue to give out grants and loans to, just grants to these different entities. So
Does that help, Mr. Weigel?
I guess I was just looking if we could just a definitive answer, because I don't want Ms. Rigg to come back a year from now. And obviously there were some events that maybe weren't heads and beds, but were more local, but yet there was obviously still a focus to get as many people staying in our hotels as possible. I just don't want that to happen. If we're only saying heads and beds for that funding, I think it's different than just focusing on it, because I think a focus is good to get people to stay in hotels, but I don't think it's end all be all at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Maybe I'll read what they got 6 criteria that they currently use, and we can see how we want to incorporate the heads and beds
Mr.
portion.
Mayor, may I just make one comment?
Yeah, just a moment. I'm going to read the 6 and then I'll get back to you. The first one is promote, and this is in order of importance. So the first one is promote Greater Grand Forks as an entertainment and recreation and tourism center. That's what number 1 has right now for the purpose. Number 2 is ability to make a significant economic impact on Greater Grand Forks. Number 3 is strategic plan to draw non-local visitors. 4 is events which make an impact on quality of life of local residents. And 5 is events lasting multiple days. 6 being events with secured sponsorships from additional sources. So, maybe we move number 3 up as a way to do that. Strategic plan to draw non-local visitors. Or I guess you'll have to decide if you want to completely eliminate anything that goes towards anything that isn't heads and beds, please.
I guess my comment is those rules that you read, or those 6 things that you just identified, those are being used for the other funding. Our funding that we are using out of our economic development is only quality of life. And so that's,
Maybe
like,
Ms.
they
Rigg
have,
can, yeah.
because
Go ahead and finish it.
the ones that Ms. Rigg spoke about, like, I think there's an extra $40,000 that you guys hand out additionally, those go off of those.
Okay, maybe you can
So
clarify
I
for
would
all
like
of
to
us,
combine them so they all have the same rules and we focus on,
All right, Ms. Rigg, maybe you can help clarify that.
Thank you, Mayor
yeah.
Boczynski. That is incorrect. The information I give you every year with your report, and the criteria is listed twice in the report I sent to you, is for the event funding program. That is this program that we're discussing. The enticement funds relate more to heads and beds because we're in bidding situations for conventions and tournaments. And we should also clarify that if we want to go to heads and beds on event funding, which that's what I do, we will eliminate things or less events like Art Fest, Street Fair. These are events that bring in a lot of regional travelers, but not overnights. So that's important to consider. There are a lot of events that are important to this community that would not qualify.
I
Ms.
would-
Osowski,
I
your
guess
comment?
I would think that the street fair would bring people in to spend the night in our community. It does draw in.
It does not bring a lot of hotel room nights.
Do you know how many it does bring in?
No, because it's, you don't pay to attend, so it's not like a conference, but I can look at occupancy numbers, and those aren't our biggest occupancy dates.
Okay. I do think that brings a lot more economic development.
It brings
that-
regional
Right,
visitors,
right.
but
You
it
know,
does not produce a lot of overnights.
I guess my personal view is we shouldn't be a charity. We should be spending our money to help bring money into our city and help with the hotel motel tax, so that we can continue doing some of these larger events. And so I don't have, I guess, if it were up to me, I'd wipe it all out, because I don't think that we should be in the charity business, but I know I would never win that vote.
Well, and if I could add, I don't see this as charity. I would like you all to remember that the people doing these events are a majority of Grand Forks citizens and local taxpayers who are putting in a lot of time and effort to create these events for our community. And they are producing a large economic impact, because even those ones that don't produce the overnights do have regional visitors. And also, just as a local person, if you go out to a concert and don't spend your money in a hotel, you're probably going to go to a restaurant. You might go to a bar afterwards. You might go do something else. So events do also bring in money to our community, but also people in our community will spend money at other businesses because of events.
I guess my motion still stands, where I would like the hotel, if the hotel motel is number 4, I would like it moved up to maybe number 1 or
Yeah.
2.
I do have one question, then we'll get to you, Ms. Lunsky. So if this was shifted and the focus is only on of heads and beds, for example, the 4th of July fireworks show, that's 17,000 to Sertoma, that doesn't seem to be a heads and beds
No.
one, but that would be one that you'd have to look to eliminate if that was going to happen? Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Lunsky?
I think one concern I would have too, just from an event planner standpoint, is some events start out small, and it might not have heads and beds, but it does bring the ability to grow over years. And I think, this Visit Grand Forks' funding is so essential for new events. I would hate to see some people not try or go elsewhere because they don't have that support.
All right, any further comments? We do have a motion, a second, Mr. President.
Mr. Mayor?
We'll go to you,
Sorry.
Vice President Wago, we'll go to you second here. We got President Sandy.
Thank you.
So, I agree with what Ms. Lunsky says, and it's nice to have some source funding to help events get started and hopefully grow. But what do we say to the fireworks, the Sertoma fireworks? They're always going to be asking us for money. And so it's not like they're becoming self-sufficient, right? They'll never be self-sufficient, and the more money we give them, the more fireworks they buy. Well, we could have the world's greatest fireworks show if we give them a few $100,000. Well, likely millions, but
I think they're an exception though, because when I applied for funding, I remember there was like a 3-year, Julie, or maybe I'm wrong, but I swear you said it was like a 3-year bump. Like you only gave funding for 3 years to try and get events off the.
It's not necessarily 3 years, but those first 3 years are when you're going to get the largest sum. Again, we were told when we took over this program that we needed to, at the time, I believe it was $12,000 or $15,000 that we needed to give for 4th of July fireworks. And we've now increased it because obviously costs of fireworks have increased. We were told that we needed to add quality of life. That was a directive from City Council to add that to this. So what's happening is I think us taking it over was to take away politicizing this program. And I think that maybe the conversations we're having now, maybe since we're in 2026, maybe we manage it for the remainder of this year, and then maybe council looks at doing it next year.
Yep, no, I appreciate
If
that. yeah.
that's, you know, if you all want to have those conversations, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, and I know we've had that conversation as well, so I think we can look at that, particularly when we go to the 2026 budget to see how we want to do it forward. Will that ease everyone's concerns that we get through 2025 and the fireworks can still happen and everyone can be happy, except for
Yes.
dog owners? They'll be upset still, but not everyone's going to be happy.
So then in 2026, we'll take it back over?
Yeah, we'll make a decision as part of the 2026 budget process, which will happen, here in the
Next
May,
couple
June,
months.
July area. So Ms. Lunsky, please.
I think that's a huge mistake, because how would people get the Visit Grand Forks' support? Like, there's so much more support than just those financial dollars from, because are you still going to help print posters or?
Oh, of course, yes, yeah.
But people wouldn't.
I don't think we've said that it's going to change for sure. It's just that we're going to talk about it.
If council would like to debate this, or members of council want to debate this every year, I think maybe it's a good idea if it goes back in your hands. 1 year, if it's heads and beds, and the next year it's something, and we can't regulate based on, we don't want this organization funded, or we don't want this organization funded. So we have these things in our criteria. I think if you look at our criteria, it's mostly focused on bringing visitors to town, but regional visitors aren't always going to produce those room nights.
Okay, any further comment? President Stanley?
Yes, Mayor.
Yep, 1 second. I got Mr. Weigel still waiting, and then we'll go, then we'll go to Veen, and then Berg, and then Sandy, if they still want to talk. So, Mr. Weigel, did you have something?
I was just going to add, I think we're all after the same goal. Maybe a roadmap differently on how we all get there, but I think we can all agree that our biggest goal is to drive people to Grand Forks, get them here for events, and then drive revenue for ultimately the city of Grand Forks and our businesses and everything else. And so I think if we can keep it where it is this year, move on to 2026, we have 4 or 5 months to have the discussions and what we want to do, and then we ultimately could take a vote then and see where it goes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President Weigel. Mr. Veen?
Yeah, I would probably support what Mr. Weigel just said. Let's continue the program now. Give us some time to revisit, I guess, that funding formula. I'd have to remind us, the current program has been highly successful. We've been an example to others, and I think we've had some amazing outcomes that many others would wish they were having. So I think we need to keep that in mind for keeping the current one open, but if we want to, let's have that discussion again before we would look at this in 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Veen. Ms. Berg?
Thank you. I believe that this organization provides a great service to our community, and I don't think it should be changing at this time. Having the farmers market is so important to so many members of our community, and I think there would be a lot of upset people if we were to change this.
All right, thank you, Ms. Berg. And President Sandy, anything to add?
Yeah, I don't mean to speak for Ms. Wasowski, Ms. Wasowski, but I don't think she said that I don't like one event or another. I think her interest is in concentrating on heads and beds, and I think ultimately for the Visit Greater Grand Forks, that is how they get their funding, from room night tax, the majority of it. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with concentrating on that. But I also I'm not sure we need to cut everyone else out. So I'm in agreement. Let's move on to next year. And then during this budget discussion, let's just have an open discussion about what we think actually makes sense for the community. And then I don't think it'd be that difficult for them to pivot the priorities. I mean, we do it with CDBG funding. This year we're homelessness. Next year it might be, fighting hunger, whatever. I mean, they're very smart, capable people that are able to pivot, I think, if we decide on that. So either way, I think in lieu of there's a motion and a second, I don't think the motion and the second we have really changes anything. And so I think we should just approve and move on.
Or did you want us to amend the motion to just approve and move on?
We can vote on this motion and have another motion after that if this one doesn't succeed, so.
And if I could speak on the groups, last year I was told that 2 events Ms. Osowski did not want to fund. It was Pride and World Refugee Day. This year, there were 2 groups, Grand Forks Public Schools for all the North Dakota activities, and then University of North Dakota. So I other than putting the heads in beds, I don't know what's wrong with our program. I just know what's the groups, I just hear about groups maybe that you're unhappy that we've funded.
I am not unhappy with you at all about UND or about the schools.
Okay.
Not with you at all. I'm upset that other taxing entities are dipping their hands into our local city dollars when we are, and I understand you're going to talk about the events and stuff. I'm just saying the University of North Dakota does not contribute to our taxes. And they have a huge budget. I think if they would, do a little bit of moving around, they could easily come up with $8,000. That's not against you. You did the right thing. Yeah, I was criticizing them. I also think the Grand Forks school system does not good job at managing their funds either. So when I'm being taxed, when I get my taxes and my school taxes are going up because they failed to maintain their property, and then they're dipping their hands into other taxing entities. That was not against you
No, I
at
understand
all,
that. I understand
Julie.
that, but just so you're aware, what Grand Forks Public Schools applies for are North Dakota state activities, so we can host them in our community. So the state of North Dakota, to host those, gives you a certain dollar amount, and that's all you get to put on the event. So these people within the public schools are adding to their daily jobs to bring these events here. These are the events that are producing room nights.
I agree, the school.
And they
the
would
school
go
ones
along
do.
with
Right.
filling the new sports complex, and that's the same with the
It
university.
was just more of a dig at the public school system. That's all it was, Julie. So nothing against you.
All right, well, thank you. If we don't have any further comments, I would like to point out UND is obviously a major economic driver on property tax from their students, their employees, and then the sales tax that's driven from, well, both students and everyone living here is obviously a very massive, tax revenue driver for the community, and quite frankly, it's heart blood most of the time, so. Any further comments, and we'll vote on the motion as is?
Mayor, I want to make sure I'm clear on this motion.
Yep. The motion is to continue with Greater Grand Forks administering the program, approving, moving forward, and with changing the focus so that it's more on hotel room nights, is the current motion. Does that help, Mr. Veen? Okay.
Yep.
All right, if you want to call a roll call vote to Maureen?
All right, we'll start with Weigel,
No.
Osowski,
Yes.
Berg,
No.
Lunsky, Friedels,
No.
Veen,
No.
and President Sandy.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Our motion fails 2-5. Osowski and Sandy in the affirmative, obviously. We did the roll call. We have any other motions on the matter?
Mayor, I move approval as is.
All right, well, President Sandy beat you to the punch. We'll give the second to Vice President Weigel. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right,
If I
thank you,
could
Ms.
add one thing to help with
Please.
your planning, we will start receiving applications for 2026, probably June, July.
Okay.
So any changes probably need to come down the road before then, or at least around then, so we can respond to those groups. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you for being here, Ms. Rigg. Thank you for what you do. That's it for action items, so move on to information items. Number 6.
6.1 is the investment portfolio summary as of January 31st.
Thank you. And item 7, approval of minutes and bills.
And 7.1 is your vendors listing and engineer's estimate.
Got a motion to approve?
Mayor,
Yeah, Ms. Berg, please.
the engineer estimates aren't attached to,
Just the vendor list then?
There aren't any this meeting.
Okay,
I'll motion to approve the vendor listing.
perfect.
I second, but I've
Motion and a second. Do you have a comment, please, Ms. Osowski?
Yeah, Why do we have so many entries for the county treasurer office?
It is the due date for special assessments that the city pays on property.
And I also noticed there was a lot of stuff on this one for interstate towing, like a whole page of interstate towing.
Mayor,
I can answer that.
Were they just moving cars?
That's from our police department, moving cars.
For what, street cleaning reasons?
That would be
Or
for towing.
Any,
Could be street or other reasons to have to move a car.
okay, it's extra heavy this month, that's why I asked. I normally
Yeah.
don't see a full page of it, so.
Yeah, I think it's probably a carryover from the winter. And it's probably, a month ago, so whenever we had a snow event or something like that.
Are people doing better about moving cars so we don't have to tow them or?
I think we're doing a better job ticketing now, and nobody wants their car towed. And I think when they tow the car, sometimes they don't tow it to their impound, but they tow it around the block. But we do have to call them in when there are situations.
And so if we're paying for this towing, then do we try to collect that from the citizen and then they pay the city? So they don't just pay
Yes, they pay through the police department, correct.
Is there any way to change that so they could pay the towing company directly? Maybe to get their car out of impound? I don't know, just asking.
I think Mayor Paczynski and Councilmember Osowski, I think to get the towing companies here, they want to make sure that they get paid on a timely basis. So I think it's probably best, sometimes, not all the time, but people that are getting their car towed are probably not the most reliable people to pay the towing company.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion second. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
And the minutes from January 21st and February 3rd.
I move approval.
Got a motion to approve and a second, motion from Ms. Osowski, second from Ms. Berg. And seeing no further comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 8, citizen comments of the general nature. There are none this evening. Thank you. Mr. Phelan, item 9, city administrator comments. Any comments?
I was going to ask Fire Chief Lorenz to come up here. They attended a funeral today, and I just wanted to honor what they did today.
Sure.
Chief Lorenz.
Mayor Bochansky, members of the council. We attended former Fire Chief Richard Ollick's funeral was today in Walker, Minnesota. For those that don't know, he was the chief for 22 years, retiring in 1999. He was here for the flood of 97. They made mention of him sleeping at the cot with the crews at the station. We sent 4 members of our off-duty honor guard, went and attended early for the family, and then a few of us drove down for the funeral, and they were very appreciative of our presence there today. And then a couple interesting things. Todd mentioned Deputy Chief Chad Cutshaw retiring. He was the last employee hired by Chief Ollick, and he's also the last employee in the department that was here for the flood of 97.
Well, thank you, Chief. Thank you for what you do. I think we hear nothing but positives, and also I know Minot had reached out a couple months ago to thank the police department too for their help. They had a tough day, and we showed up and helped out. So our public safety is the brightest spot we got in the city. So thank you for what you do.
We have a lot of bright spots. Thank you.
Well said, sir. Anything further, Mr. Phelan? All right, we'll move on to mayor and council member comments. Any comments this evening, Ms. Osowski?
Yes, I have a couple. I just want to remind the citizens that you are able to opt out of the smart meters. I haven't heard on what the fee would be on those or anything, but I do not plan on allowing people into my home to allow them to change my water meter. Also, I urge people to please go and fill out that survey for our old water treatment plant. I think it's really important that we get some different opinions in there, because I can say 2 of the things that were presented today I was not a big fan of. So I think it's really important that people get out and make their opinions heard. Also, I am going to request again that maybe next week, since it's committee of the whole, we could get some kind of informational presentation on pilot programs. I would greatly appreciate that. So, thank you.
Mayor Paczynski, if I could, we are going to plan either at
this following call or on the city council meeting on
Thank
the
you.
3rd. So it's on our list to do, so it'll be a combined presentation from, the administrative staff and also Mr. Gossett on some of the legal particulars. So that'll either come next Monday or the following Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Ms. Berg?
Yes, I see that we have a Boy Scout here tonight, and so I just want to say a shout out and thank you for coming.
Absolutely, that's great. Ms. Lunsky, any comments? All right, Mr. Friedolfs?
Last Friday, we had a honorable visit from General Slife and General Broadwell. So they came to visit the base and look how well the airmen are taken care of and kind of see the infrastructure that's going on out there at Grand Sky and at the base. And so they were really impressed with the community. They were really impressed with just how the base is growing, and it's pretty exciting stuff. And then right before we came to this meeting, the mayor and I were over at Brick and Barley to see the B-1 pilots and all their spouses and a bunch of folks there. Huge turnout. Did I steal your thunder, Mayor?
That's okay.
Okay, sorry. But great to see all these new airmen in town and bringing stuff to the community, and I think they're going to be out and about. So,
Thank you, Mr. Friedolfs. Mr. Veen, any comments?
Yeah, just, I think I want to reiterate the one that was made earlier about the water treatment plant site input. I think as much input as we can get from the public. There's lots of questions yet to be addressed with that, and so I would appreciate getting more of that information or comments to us. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Veen. Vice President Weigel, any comments?
No, thank you, Mayor.
All right, President Sandy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, unlike Ms. Osowski, Keystone was at my home this afternoon. They showed up promptly at 10:05 a.m. when they said they were going to come, and 9 minutes later, they were leaving my house. And so it was a very seamless and easy process. They cleaned up after themselves. The gentleman was very polite, and it was quite simple. So from now on, nobody ever has to come back into my house to check on my meter because it does the work for me. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you, President Sandy. Yeah, Mr. Friedolfs did steal some of my comments. General Slife and Senator Kramer were in. It was quite the Valentine's Day dinner for my wife. She'll probably never forgive me, but actually it turned out pretty well. So I really appreciate that. Anytime we can get some Air Force brass to come through Grand Forks and tell our story, they're always blown away by what they see. Also wanted to thank President Sandy, who was also over there for the welcome with the Ellsworth crew, a lively bunch. It's great to see all that energy and that group down in Grand Forks and in downtown here and enjoying themselves. So that was pretty good to see. They got a lot of hard, heavy work to do, but on a Tuesday night, they were able to relax and enjoy a happy hour. So that's really what it's all about. So just reiterate that we're welcoming the B-1 mission, excited to have them. And if you see them around town, just thank them for what they do. That's all I've got, so we'll look at item 11, adjournment.
I move adjournment.
Motion adjourned from Ms. Osowski, second from Ms. Berg. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned.